Good Thursday morning, Larry Sprinkle, along with Chris Mulcahy, and the two of us are here. It's all about
weather.
Weather day today.
Yes.
It's kind of interesting. Coming into work this morning, about 2:20, got here to the station and got out of the car, and I'm telling you, it was like, where's this wind coming from? It was a gust of wind you wouldn't believe. And so that was the highest wind so far today. We're going to get more.
As another system rolls in.
Coming through. First of all, let's take a look and show you what's going on picture-wise across here. That top left-hand side right there, Chris, that's our tower cam. It's interesting. We look down on the clouds from that perspective.
Yeah, it's a great tool, especially when it's foggy or you have some low-level stratus clouds. But this one right here, we just literally have our head in the clouds. And it's not raining everywhere, but we are starting to see more showers start to creep back in. And the tarp is back in Kannapolis.
Did they actually get that game in yesterday? Do you know?
Yeah, the game was awesome. Actually, for the first time during the noon show.
It was a daytime game.
Yeah, it was at 11 o'clock. I was watching baseball.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was really cool to see. So yeah, they're going to try it again. So we'll see how the storms are going to impact them.
In Monroe, looking okay. And Lake Norman, you see some gray skies there on Lake Norman today. The issue is going to be later again today. More gusty winds. So far, highest wind gusts in Charlotte, 36 miles per hour. That was probably around 2:20 this morning. Up in Boone, 43-mile-an-hour wind gust up there in the high country. Not that unusual there. I mean, they do that. They see that quite often up there.
But a 36 for us, it brought down several tree branches, and really it's those shallow root trees. We've had enough rain recently that can topple some of those over, where we had a downed tree that was actually blocking a lane on Tyvola, and then also another downed tree in another neighborhood, and then some tree limbs took out power lines that are still blocking part of Airwood Road as of 7:30 a.m. So, yeah, it's been affecting your traffic, and it will continue to do so.
You can see some of these wind gusts as we get to early afternoon, over 30 miles per hour over much of the area. This takes us to around 3 o'clock this afternoon. There's some pretty high wind gusts out there. You know, you get a wind over 30 miles per hour. That's the kind that does the damage to tree limbs, you hit the power lines, and more all the way through the afternoon into the evening. So we're talking about winds gusting 30, maybe up to 40 miles per hour. So highest wind gusts once again. We saw 36 here, 43 in the Boone area. So yeah, those high winds out there. Rainfall, yeah, I think that's going to be an issue. But I think really the major issue today is going to be those winds, Chris.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be a severe thunderstorm. Just enough with this, and really our severe weather impacts, I think, have really come down because most of the energy to the south or to the north. But just because of how windy it is, we've already seen the impacts, and I don't even really think that we've hit our maximum for the day. And then on top of that, you still have a general threat for damaging winds and even an isolated tornado in the Carolinas.
The highest wind gusts are going to be winds are going to be north and south of here. You know, when you say 5%, people looking at it go, well, that's
not taking that bet.
But it does mean that we're in the situation where there could be a couple situations where you get some gusty winds that could cause some tree lines, power lines, and a little bit of damage. This is interesting. You don't see this that often where you have all these days without any rain, no storms.
That's nice. So one day to have the umbrella. However, today, even though it's not official, could be a broken umbrella advisory. So keep that in mind.
That's a new one. I like that. Broken umbrella advisory. It's interesting. We're in between two big systems. That one that you see over there around Jacksonville and then just south of Charleston, that's the one that tracked across Louisiana and caused a terrible weather, the tornado in Slidell. And then the other system is over the Mid-South, but we are starting to see some pockets of rain coming out of North Georgia, moving into the foothills and the mountains.
The worst case scenario that will be for us is if we have some rain that's rolling through this morning and then we hit a dry slot and see some sunshine. That'll destabilize the atmosphere and any of the storms that we're seeing further off towards the west. Like these ones likely lifting off towards the north and east, so affecting the western side of North Carolina. It's that other band behind that we could see a little bit later on, but at least we are going to likely see a little bit of a lull, but that could also not work in our favor depending where you are.
Yeah, we're going to be temperature-wise, I'd say low to mid-70s today, but I think the bulk of this heavier rain could come right in the middle of the afternoon. It's interesting, the timing of the situation has changed considerably since what we were talking about yesterday.
And also the setup just with all the fronts. It was looking like, hey, classic cold front moving through, but there's literally almost like a dozen fronts, it seems like, on the map.
It's almost confusing to look at a surface map. What I like about this 7-day forecast is what's going to happen tomorrow. Nice, but this weekend. Outside, anything and everything you want to do is perfect for that.
It's crazy because you have the mid-80s coming up, which, by the way, the warmest temperature we had in Charlotte so far this season. 84 degrees. So likely the warmest days of the year are still on tap, but I want to bring up the winds a little bit more. The reason why we're weather aware is the winds. So we do have a wind advisory that is just for Lancaster and also Chesterfield County, and that's a different office. So that is the Columbia office that put them in that. We're pretty close to the threshold, but likely going to be staying out of for the Charlotte area. You already showed this, but wind gusts up to about 36 miles per hour today would put us in what's called the near gale force wind category. So this was Sir Francis Beaufort back in the 1800s came up with a wind scale that really just talked about how winds affect the waves for sailors, but you also can do it on land. This means that whole trees are going to be in motion likely today. Once it gets to gale force, which will be a possibility, twigs and small branches start to break. But realistically, the upper part of near gale, we've been seeing it up to 36. That has brought down uprooted some trees, brought down a bunch of limbs across the area. So today and tomorrow, because the backside of the system, you're going to have gusty winds. So we're still going to keep that threat for down trees around. So that's one of the main things, but then also mid to late afternoon, heading into the early evening, you will have a chance for a storm or two. Larry, as you mentioned it, the severe threat is low, but it is still very much there. I think especially for our eastern zones and maybe middle of the evening as you get close to Raleigh.
You know, when you have as much rain as we've had, the swells loosen, you get the trees. We have so many older trees. Some trees in the Myers Park area well over 100 years old. And quite often we start to see those go down. And I think we're in that perfect situation because the winds gusting to 45 miles an hour. The trees go down, the tree limbs go down. So more power outages is a definite possibility through the afternoon.
Yeah, we had over 1,000 out in Mecklenburg County. The last check I did was probably about 45 minutes ago. But Larry, this is exactly what you talked about, the rain that we also had. It weakens that root system, where a lot of those trees, the root system only goes down about 12 to 18 inches. And also, a lot of the branches that came down today, you might not realize that some of those branches are dried out or dead parts of the trees. So that's what you got to watch out for. Even just walking around outside of any thunderstorms, just branches, twigs, things like that coming from the sky. And, of course, the worst-case scenario of fallen trees. So we end this, stay weather aware. But as Larry showed you, it's awesome after this.
Absolutely. The weekend's going to be perfect. And, in fact, if we could look at that one more time, that 7-day forecast. So look at that.
And on a good note.
Nice tomorrow. Comfortably cool, mid-70s Saturday, and then warming up. I think a lot of people probably going to be cranking up the air conditioning next week with temperatures in the mid-80s Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. At least the windows open. So that's it. That's our weather. We're back with more tomorrow morning, dark and early, starting at 4:30. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.